The text came in while I was helping a customer with a blouse. I'm leaving you, and I'm moving to Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. I've already emptied our joint account. My hands didn't tremble as I read it. My voice didn't quiver as I smiled politely and handed Mrs. Foster her receipt. The only sign that my husband of 11 years had just obliterated our marriage with a single cold text message was the slight tightening around my eyes. I waited until Mrs. Foster left, her purchase neatly wrapped in a simple white box, before I composed myself and tapped out a reply. Good luck. I'm Sarah, and at 37, I just received the most heartless goodbye in history. But while Jason was probably congratulating himself for his grand escape, picturing me sobbing over his betrayal, I calmly locked the doors to my boutique for the evening. The signs had been there for months, I realize now. The late nights at work that never matched his income, the sudden password changes on his phone, the way he started spending more time at the gym, buying new clothes as if he were trying to recapture some lost version of himself. 3 months ago, I found a receipt for 2 meals at an expensive restaurant, a place he'd claimed he was working late at. I hadn't said a word then, but I'd known. That same night, I opened a separate bank account at a new bank. A week later, when he mentioned combining our accounts for convenience, I agreed without hesitation, all while quietly transferring my savings into my new account. The joint account he'd just wiped clean? It had just enough to keep him from suspecting anything, about 2 months' worth of regular deposits. The rest of it was tucked away, along with records of every shady transaction he'd made over the last year. I didn't respond to his text. Instead, I called my lawyer, the one I'd met with 2 months ago when I found the hotel charges on our joint credit card. It's time, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He made his move, my lawyer said. The paperwork is ready. Do you want me to serve him in Miami? Let him think he won, I answered, a smile tugging at my lips. Another text from Jason came through. Don't bother begging. Rachel and I are leaving tomorrow. I'll send for my things later. Rachel, the new receptionist at his office. I'd met her at the company holiday party, watched her laugh a little too loudly at Jason's jokes. Noticed the way she'd touch his arm whenever she thought no one was looking. She was young enough to be his daughter, naive enough to believe she was different. I didn't respond to his text. Instead, I went straight back to my boutique, my heart beating steadily in my chest. Later that evening, as I was wrapping up some paperwork for my lawyer, I came across our wedding album. Jason looked so different back then. The man in those photos was someone I barely recognized now. His midlife crisis had turned him into a caricature of his former self. These days, he wore shirts too tight for his growing belly, tried too hard to connect with the younger staff at work, even using slang that sounded ridiculous coming from a man nearing 45. A new message popped up. I know this must be hard for you. You're not getting any younger after all. At least you have your little shop to keep you busy. My little shop, I thought. The boutique I built from the ground up that I grew on my own. The one that made more money than his middle management job ever did. I couldn't help but smile. Jason's arrogance was truly unmatched. The certified letters waiting for him in Miami would be a fitting reminder of just how wrong he'd been. Another message came in. Don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay there until you find something smaller. I laughed. Did he really think he had any claim to that house? The one I inherited from my parents, the one I'd kept in my name, despite his insistence to add him to the deed? Another lucky instinct that paid off. And I know the shop means a lot to you, the next text read. We can work out a fair payment for your half. My half? Of the business I built with my own hands? The one that he always called a hobby when he was annoyed by my late nights at work? The one he pretended to support while silently undermining my efforts? I poured myself a glass of wine, the good stuff I'd been saving for a special occasion. Let him think he's won. I'd enjoy my evening in peace, and when morning came, I would turn the tables. I silenced my phone. Tomorrow I'd start the next chapter of my life. I spent the next few days carefully moving through the motions, each action deliberate, calculated. The grief had already passed. What remained now was the cold satisfaction of knowing I was prepared, that Jason's betrayal had set in motion a plan that would leave him with nothing. I didn't need to cry over a man who thought he could walk away with it all. I'd already figured out how to take control back. The first step was securing my business. I didn't hesitate to hire a financial consultant who helped me take a hard look at every penny I'd earned over the years. Every transaction was documented, every asset carefully separated from our joint account. What Jason never understood, and what I'd made clear from the start, was that the boutique wasn't just a business. It was my lifeline, my pride, and my independence. It wasn't something I could ever let him stake a claim on, no matter what he thought of it. While I worked with my lawyer, Thomas, to ensure everything was in order legally, I also began to focus on myself. The boutique had grown into something much bigger than I could have imagined. But beyond the hustle and the revenue, I realized how much more I had now. Clarity. The freedom to be unapologetically myself. Jason had underestimated me, and I wouldn't make the same mistake. He'd thought he could leave me broken, but what he didn't know was that I was already stronger than I'd ever been. The texts from Jason continued, each one more desperate than the last. Please don't do this, he begged. You'll regret making things so difficult. You're overreacting. He even suggested we could work things out. I let those messages pile up, each one adding fuel to the fire I'd already lit under my own feet. I didn't need his apologies. I didn't need his validation. I was building something now, something that didn't need his permission to exist. By now, I was looking at my boutique in a new light. I began sketching out ideas for new collections and improving the customer experience. More customers were coming in, and I could see them, the women who came to support me not just because of my reputation, but because they sensed the shift in me. They saw the strength beneath the surface. My success wasn't just a reflection of my talent, but of my resilience. Of course, none of this came without challenges. As much as I focused on expanding my business and preparing for the next stage of my life, Jason's presence loomed. I couldn't avoid the texts or the phone calls, but instead of letting it affect me, I used it as fuel. Every message, every taunt, only reminded me that he didn't understand what I was truly capable of. I was in charge now, not just of my business, but of my life. Before I share what happened next, the moment that completely shifted the course of my life and took me from surviving to thriving, I want to connect with you, my amazing viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever had to fight for something you believe in, hit that like button, because this story is just getting started. Stay tuned, because the best part is yet to come. The day Jason left for Miami, I stood in the quiet of my boutique, watching the rain pour down outside. It felt like a dramatic movie scene, one I would have laughed off in a different life. But this time, there was no laughter. The reality was far more complex than I could have imagined. But the weight of his absence, his audacity to think he could take everything, had become the fuel I needed to keep moving forward. Jason's texts didn't stop. In fact, they became more frequent. I thought you'd understand, he wrote one afternoon. I'm doing what's best for both of us. You'll be fine. Maybe now you'll realize how much I've done for you. Each message was a reminder of how little he understood me, and how much I had learned about myself. How could he not see? This wasn't just about a marriage ending. This was about him underestimating the strength of the woman he'd taken for granted. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I started organizing. I'd made an appointment with the bank and canceled all joint accounts. I informed them about the fraudulent transactions that Jason had made under my name. The first-class flight tickets to Miami, the lavish hotel reservations. He was too careless, too sure of himself, thinking I would be left helpless, scrambling to make ends meet. But I had already anticipated his every move, prepared for this betrayal in a way he would never imagine. I called Thomas, my lawyer, to make sure everything was moving forward smoothly. We're ready, he said, his voice calm but firm. I've got everything we need to file. The evidence you've gathered is solid. He won't stand a chance. I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. As much as Jason thought he was ahead of me, he was already sinking deeper into his own trap. I knew what I had to do next. That evening, when Jason's next text came in, I didn't flinch. I know this is hard for you, it read, but you'll find a way to move on, right? You've got your little business to keep you busy. The arrogance in his words, The assumption that I was some fragile woman with no backbone was almost laughable. I had worked my whole life to build something solid, something mine, something that didn't need him. And now I was about to make sure he understood exactly that. I didn't waste time typing out a lengthy reply. Instead, I forwarded the message to my lawyer. "This is going to be easier than I thought," I texted him. "Let's move forward. File the papers first thing tomorrow." And just like that, Jason's grand escape was about to come to a screeching halt. I didn't need to get angry or petty. I simply needed to stand my ground. He had underestimated me once again. But this time I wouldn't let it slide. The following morning, as I headed to my boutique, the weight on my shoulders felt lighter than it had in days. I was no longer carrying the emotional burden of betrayal. Instead, I was carrying the confidence of someone who knew exactly what needed to be done. Jason might have thought he was winning, but he hadn't realized the most dangerous part of this equation. I was no longer afraid of losing him. The first move was mine. I watched my phone light up with more of his messages. He was probably pacing in Miami, wondering why I hadn't reacted yet. "Please, Sarah," he wrote. "Don't do anything drastic. You're being unfair. We can fix this. Let me explain." The words blurred together in a haze of empty apologies. But I didn't need his explanations. What I needed was to keep my focus sharp. And the more I focused, the clearer it became. He was not going to get away with this. Not on my watch. I glanced at the paperwork on my desk, the records I'd kept hidden away from his prying eyes. Every transaction, every piece of evidence was ready. My next move was set. And when Jason got that call from my lawyer, when he realized that I had taken all the steps necessary to protect myself, the truth would hit him harder than any emotional plea ever could. This was no longer about him. It was about me. And when I finally took back everything he thought he could steal, he would know that there was one thing he had never understood about me. I didn't just survive, I thrived. Jason's messages came in waves, relentless and unyielding, each one more desperate than the last. As if the harder he tried to reach me, the further I pulled away. At first, I thought he might eventually get the message, that he would realize I was done. But then came the calls, the ones where he begged for a conversation, where his voice cracked with the weight of his own guilt. "Sarah, this isn't what I wanted," he'd say, his tone fragile, almost pleading. I was confused. "I made a mistake. Can we talk about this?" But I wasn't interested in talking. Not with him. Not anymore. The woman who had once believed in every word he said, the woman who had stood by him through everything, was gone. In her place stood a woman who had finally come to understand the value of her own worth. And that woman wasn't going to waste her time trying to patch up a marriage that had been shattered long before Jason had the courage to leave. Instead, I focused on the task at hand, the finalizing of the legal proceedings, the ensuring of my own security, and most importantly, the unwavering protection of everything I had worked so hard to build. It was time to take what was mine and leave Jason with the mess of his own making. The next few days felt like a blur of activity. My lawyer, Thomas, stayed in close contact with me, keeping me updated as the paperwork moved forward. Each step was a victory, though it was one I could hardly savor with Jason's persistent attempts to manipulate me through increasingly pathetic messages. "I can't believe you're doing this," he wrote one evening. "We had a life together, Sarah. Don't let it end like this. Let's fix it. Just give me a chance." I didn't reply to that. I didn't need to. It was clear that the man who had once claimed to love me was no longer the person I knew. The truth was, he had never truly seen me, not in the way I had seen him. He had never seen my ambition, my strength, the way I had poured my heart into building my business and supporting our life together. All he saw was the version of me he could control, the woman who put his needs first, always. Well, that woman was gone, and the woman who was taking her place wasn't going to be manipulated. Jason's final move came on a Thursday afternoon. I was in the boutique, organizing the latest shipment, when my phone buzzed with another message. This one was different. It was the final card he had left to play, and I could almost hear his voice as I read it. "You know I'm right about this, don't you?" he wrote. "You're not going to be able to do this alone. You've built your little shop, but you're not a real businesswoman. You'll fall apart without me. You'll regret this." I'm the one who always held us together. Remember? For a moment, I felt the weight of his words, words that had once had the power to shake me to my core. But now they felt hollow. They didn't make me angry. They didn't make me sad. They simply made me feel free. Free from the man who had always tried to belittle my achievements. Free from the toxic narrative he had tried to create. And in that moment, something clicked inside me. I didn't need him. I never did. I called Thomas and asked him to move forward with everything. Let's serve the papers. Let's make it official. I didn't even need to think about it. I was done. That evening, as I prepared to close up the boutique for the night, Jason called again. His voice was louder this time, strained and panicked. I know what you're doing, he shouted into the phone. You're making a huge mistake. You're ruining everything. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I let the words hang in the air for a moment, feeling the weight of them. And then, I did something I had never done before. I laughed. It wasn't a laugh of joy or satisfaction. It was the kind of laugh that came from knowing the truth, from finally understanding how foolish he had been. No, Jason, I said quietly, you've ruined everything. You just didn't realize it until now. And with that, I ended the call. I didn't need to keep listening to his empty promises or his attempts to shift blame. It was over. The emotional weight that had been hanging over me for so long was finally lifted. And with that, I walked out of my boutique, locking the door behind me, and felt the breeze of freedom hit my face. Jason might have thought he was the one who held all the cards, but the truth was, he had never understood what it meant to truly fight for something. He had never fought for me, but I had fought for myself every single day. And now the game was over. My heart felt light, as though the universe had conspired to remind me that I was capable of so much more than I had ever realized. The next chapter was mine, and no one, certainly not Jason, could take that from me. The days that followed were nothing like I expected. They were better, lighter. For the first time in years, I felt like I was breathing again, not just existing. Jason's departure, his cruel words, had all been a catalyst. A push into a new phase of my life that I hadn't even realized I was ready for. But now, with the weight of him gone, I was ready to build something far more meaningful than I had ever thought possible. It didn't happen overnight, of course. Success doesn't usually work that way. But there was something different about me now. I wasn't the woman who had once been afraid to make decisions without Jason's approval. I wasn't the woman who second-guessed herself at every turn. Now, I moved forward with purpose, with clarity, and with a deep understanding of my own strength. I had faced the worst of my fears, and here I was, standing tall. The boutique flourished in ways I never imagined. With Jason's departure, I found myself more focused than ever. I streamlined operations, hired new staff who shared my vision, and doubled down on the things that made my business special. I took risks I would have been too hesitant to take before, introducing a new line of high-end accessories that quickly gained popularity. It was like the universe was rewarding me for trusting myself, for not letting his betrayal be the end of my story but the beginning of a new one. And it wasn't just the business that grew. My life, my heart, expanded in ways I couldn't have predicted. I rediscovered old passions, found new friendships, and connected with women who had their own stories of resilience and strength. One of those women, a fellow entrepreneur named Rachel, came into my boutique one afternoon. She was sharp, ambitious, and had just launched her own fashion line. We instantly clicked, sharing stories of triumphs and failures, of the risks we took and the sacrifices we made. As we chatted over coffee, I realized how much I had missed the camaraderie of other women who truly understood the weight of what it meant to build something from nothing. Through it all, my lawyer, Thomas, continued to guide me. The divorce was final, and Jason had tried every last-ditch effort to undermine the settlement. But each attempt was met with the same response: evidence, documentation. And now the truth was clear to everyone. I had fought for what was mine, and I had won. Every email, every text, every call from Jason's family, each one trying to convince me that I had overreacted, only confirmed what I knew deep down, that they had never truly seen me for who I was, but only for who they needed me to be. And then, one day, I opened a letter that would change everything. A local magazine, Women's Business Today, wanted to feature my boutique in an article about successful female entrepreneurs. At first, I thought it was a joke. There had to be some mistake. But as I read through the email, I realized it was real. This wasn't just a feature on a small business. It was a celebration of my journey, my strength, my ability to overcome what Jason had thrown at me and come out on top. The photo shoot was scheduled for the following week, and as I stood in front of the camera, I felt a sense of pride wash over me. I had done this. This success, this beautiful, thriving business was mine. It didn't matter how many times Jason had belittled it, mocked it, or tried to claim it as his own. This was mine. And it wasn't just about the boutique. It was about every step I had taken to get here, every single moment where I had chosen to stand tall instead of crumbling under the weight of someone else's expectations. A few weeks later, the article was published, and the response was overwhelming. Customers poured into the boutique, sharing their own stories of overcoming struggles, of finding their voice. Women came to me for advice, to ask how I had managed to stay so strong. And every time I spoke with them, I was reminded that I wasn't alone. My story wasn't unique. It was a shared experience. Every woman who had ever been underestimated, pushed aside, or told she wasn't enough could understand what it meant to rise from the ashes. But for me, it wasn't just about the business success. It was about the quiet victories, the moments where I realized that I had built a life I could be proud of, with no one's approval but my own. The power to decide, to grow, and to change was all mine. It wasn't long before I had to expand. I opened a second location, and then a third, each one stronger than the last. And with every new opening, I felt more solidified in my place in the world. I wasn't the woman who had once been afraid to stand on her own. I was the woman who had made her own path, brick by brick, and now I was walking it with pride. And as for Jason, his attempts to reach me dwindled. The text messages stopped. The calls ceased. He had tried everything to rewrite the ending of our story, but he couldn't. And I was okay with that, because the ending I was living was so much better than the one he had imagined. This was my new beginning, and it was everything I had ever dreamed of and more. The aftermath was nothing like I had imagined. When Jason walked out of our lives, I thought the hardest part would be the loneliness. The nights of quiet reflection, the moments where I questioned if I had made the right decision, would surely follow. But in truth, I barely had time to feel any of that. The days became consumed with work, with new ideas, with the excitement of finally living my life for myself. And the more I immersed myself in this new chapter, the more I realized how much I had been holding back, how much of myself I had been stifling to fit into a life that never fully belonged to me. The boutique flourished. More customers came, drawn not only to the clothes but to the energy of the place, the feeling of strength that permeated the walls. The stories started pouring in from other women, women who had also been overlooked, underestimated, or told they couldn't do it. And with each new story, I felt a deeper connection to the journey I had taken. It wasn't just about selling clothes anymore. It was about creating a space where women felt empowered, where they could leave feeling better than when they walked in. I wanted them to see in me what I had come to see in myself, someone who could handle whatever life threw her way. But even as I moved forward, Jason remained a shadow. His messages, though less frequent, still came. At first, I felt a certain amount of contempt when I read them. His excuses, his feeble attempts at guilt-tripping. "You're making a huge mistake," one said. "I can't believe you're throwing everything away." I didn't bother responding. I didn't need to anymore. I was done with him. His attempts to reach me were desperate, a futile effort to cling to a past that I had left behind. What I found instead, with each new attempt, was clarity. He didn't know me, not really. He never had. The woman he had thought would crumble, the one he thought needed him, she was gone. And in her place stood someone who had learned how to trust her instincts, someone who had come to understand her own worth. Then came the unexpected. One afternoon, my phone rang. It was Barbara, Jason's mother. I hadn't heard from her since the divorce was finalized, and to be honest, I didn't expect to. But there she was, her voice shaky, as though she was unsure of how to start. "I just wanted to apologize," she said. "I know I didn't support you before. Jason's been telling us a lot of things, and we didn't believe you. But now I see it. I see how he's been treating you. For a moment I was silent. There was no need to say anything. I had known this day would come. People like Barbara, people who had supported Jason without question, would eventually come to understand the truth. It didn't surprise me. It didn't even anger me. What surprised me was the sense of peace I felt. I had let go of the need for anyone's approval, least of all his family's. The past was the past, and there was no reason to drag it into the present. "Thank you," I said, keeping my voice steady, my emotions in check. "I appreciate that, but this is something I had to do on my own. I don't need anyone's validation anymore." And that was the truth. I didn't need anyone's approval. Not from Jason, not from his family, not from anyone. I had made it this far on my own, and I wasn't about to stop now. Life, as it turned out, had a way of moving forward, whether we were ready for it or not. And I was ready. The growth of the boutique was a testament to that. Every new store opening, every new collection I launched, felt like a victory not just for my business, but for myself. I had done it. I had taken the worst thing that could have happened and turned it into something beautiful. My life, my success, my happiness, it was all mine to build. The world was mine for the taking, and I had no intention of slowing down. With each new day, I felt more certain of one thing. The best revenge wasn't in trying to get even. It was in moving forward, in showing up for myself in ways I never had before. It was in creating a life that Jason couldn't touch, no matter how many times he tried. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Time passed, and with it came the sweet taste of triumph. I had settled into my new life, a life built not on the ruins of my past, but on the strength of everything I had overcome. The boutique had grown beyond what I'd ever imagined. It wasn't just a store anymore. It was a symbol of my resilience, a place where women came not only to shop but to connect, to share their own stories of survival, and to leave feeling more powerful than when they came in. I had learned something profound through all of this. When you stop looking back and start looking forward, the world opens up in ways you could never predict. Every milestone, every success felt like a step away from the woman I had once been. Afraid, unsure, carrying the weight of a marriage that never truly supported me. And every step forward was a confirmation that I had made the right choice. Jason had thought he was the one who held the power, but it was always in my hands. It was always in my ability to adapt, to rise above, and to keep moving. Then one day I got the call. It wasn't from Jason, nor from his family. It was from a business journal, The Entrepreneurial Edge, asking if they could feature my story in an upcoming issue about women breaking barriers in business. At first, I thought it was a joke. How could they want my story? The woman who had once been trapped in a marriage where she was always second? But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. This wasn't just a success story, it was a journey. It was a testament to what happens when you take back control, when you stop allowing anyone to define you. The article was published a few weeks later, and the response was overwhelming. My story was no longer just about a woman who had been left behind. It was about a woman who had rebuilt, who had taken the pieces of her shattered life and turned them into something incredible. The message I received from other women, from people who had seen themselves in my story, left me speechless. It wasn't just about a business. It was about the heart and soul I had poured into every step of this journey. But then came something I didn't expect. Jason reached out again. This time it was a simple text, no grand declarations, no guilt-laden paragraphs. "I've seen what you've done," it read. "I was wrong. You've done something amazing, and I'm sorry for everything." For a moment, I stared at the words, feeling a mix of emotions. There was no anger, no sense of vindication, just a quiet acknowledgement that this was the closure I needed. He had finally seen me for who I truly was. Not the woman he had tried to control, not the woman he had belittled, but the woman who had made her own way, who had built something stronger than he ever could have imagined. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The truth was, I had already moved on. His apology wasn't for me, it was for him. And as much as I appreciated the gesture, it wasn't going to change anything. The person I had become, the life I had created, was mine. And that was enough. I stood in front of the mirror in my office one evening, the soft glow of the lights casting a warm halo around me. I was no longer just the woman who had been left behind. I was the woman who had built a life, piece by piece, from the ground up. The woman who had turned her pain into power, her struggle into strength. And for the first time, I truly understood what success meant. It wasn't just about the accolades, the businesses, or the recognition. It was about finding peace within yourself, about knowing you did it on your own terms. And so, as the days turned into months and the months into years, I continued to build. The boutique grew, new locations opened, and I expanded my reach into new ventures. But the real triumph was never in the growth of my business. It was in the growth of my heart. The final word wasn't in the divorce, in Jason's empty apologies, or in any success I had attained. The final word was the quiet confidence I felt every morning when I woke up, knowing that I had come this far, and I had done it all on my own. Every morning, as I stepped into my boutique, there was a fresh energy in the air, peace I hadn't known in years. I had rebuilt my life from the wreckage of my past, and each step I took felt like a testimony to the strength I had found within myself. But just when I thought my life was complete, success in my business, stability in my personal life, there was something missing. A part of me that I had closed off for so long, the ability to trust in love again. It wasn't that I was lonely. The boutique was thriving, and I had surrounded myself with incredible friends, people who inspired me daily. But there was still that space in my heart that hadn't been filled. A part of me that had once loved so deeply, yet been hurt beyond measure. I had healed in so many ways, but the thought of opening my heart again seemed daunting. How could I trust someone enough to love them after everything I had gone through? Then it happened when I least expected it. I met Alex at a business networking event. He was charming, easy to talk to, and most importantly, he listened. Really listened. Unlike so many people I'd met before, Alex didn't seem to have any agenda. He wasn't trying to impress or sell anything, he was just present. He spoke with humility about his own entrepreneurial journey, and there was something about him that made me feel comfortable, something that made me want to know more. At first, I resisted. I told myself that I was fine on my own, that I didn't need anyone else to complete me. My life was already full. I was stronger than ever. But as the days passed, and as Alex and I shared more conversations, whether over coffee or long walks in the park, I began to feel something shift inside me. I realized that maybe, just maybe, it was okay to let someone else in again. I didn't need to give up my independence or the life I had built, but there was room for someone else to be a part of it, to share in the joy I had created. We started dating, and I'll admit I was cautious at first. I didn't want to rush into anything. But with each date, each conversation, I found myself slowly letting go of the walls I'd built. Alex wasn't like Jason. He wasn't trying to change me or control me. He appreciated me for who I was, not just the woman who had built a business, but the woman who had fought through so much pain and come out stronger on the other side. He admired my strength, but he never made me feel like I had to do it all alone. With him, I could be myself, vulnerable yet strong. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to dream about a future with someone. Not because I needed them, but because I wanted to share my life with them. Alex was supportive, encouraging, and, above all, patient. He never rushed me. He let me take my time, and in doing so, he showed me what a healthy, balanced relationship could look like. But it wasn't just about the relationship. As I let Alex into my life, I realized something incredibly important. Opening my heart again didn't mean I was weak. It didn't mean I was going backward. It meant I had learned to love myself enough to know that I deserved to be loved in return, in a way that was kind, patient, and understanding. With Alex, I felt a new sense of partnership. Not a reliance, but a true connection. We were two strong individuals, each with our own dreams and ambitions, but together, we were something even greater. We built each other up. He respected my work, my passion for my boutique, and he never once made me feel like I had to choose between him and my career. If anything, he encouraged me to go further, to reach higher. Our relationship wasn't without its challenges, of course. I had moments where I doubted myself, moments when my past insecurities crept in. But Alex always knew how to help me work through them. never making me feel small or insignificant. His love wasn't about control or manipulation. It was about trust, support, and growth. As the months passed, I began to truly embrace the idea of love again, not as something that could take away from my life, but as something that could add to it. I realized that love wasn't about needing someone. It was about choosing someone to share your journey with, someone who lifts you up and makes you feel whole. I had learned that love, when it's right, doesn't diminish you. It makes you more of who you are. And with Alex by my side, I felt more like myself than ever before. I had built a successful business, I had found peace within myself, and now, for the first time, I had found love. Not the kind that depended on someone else to complete me, but the kind that allowed me to grow, to expand, and to be my fullest self. And for that, I was grateful. As the seasons changed, so did my understanding of what it meant to truly share a life with someone. With Alex, every day was a reminder that love could be a partnership built on mutual respect and shared goals. It was different from everything I had known before, but it was everything I had unknowingly needed. Our relationship wasn't defined by grand gestures or constant displays of affection. Instead, it was built on small, everyday moments. Alex would surprise me with a cup of coffee on a busy morning when he knew I had an important meeting ahead. I would surprise him with dinner after a long day of work, making sure to add his favorite dishes, the ones I had learned to cook over time. It was in the simplicity of these moments that I found the most joy, knowing that we were there for each other, without expectation or need. As our relationship grew, so did my sense of self. I wasn't afraid to chase new opportunities because I knew Alex supported me, not out of obligation, but because he believed in my strength. He often told me, "You don't need anyone to help you succeed, but I'm here because I want to be." Those words resonated with me in a way I hadn't expected. It wasn't about dependence or validation. It was about choosing to walk through life together, side by side, each of us contributing to the other's happiness and success. We also found ways to blend our lives in meaningful ways. Alex was involved in the expansion of the boutique, helping me navigate the business side while I focused on the creative aspects. We would brainstorm ideas together, even if the projects he suggested didn't always align with my vision. It was the process of collaborating, of respecting each other's expertise, that made it so enriching. We weren't just partners in love, but in business too, and somehow it made both aspects of our lives more fulfilling. But it wasn't always easy. There were moments when old fears crept in, when I felt the vulnerability of being open with someone else. At times, I questioned if I was moving too fast or if I had lost sight of my independence. Those thoughts weren't about Alex, but about myself, about learning to reconcile the independent woman I had become with the woman I was learning to be in a partnership. But with Alex, I never felt pressured to give up who I was. He didn't try to fix me or make me someone I wasn't. He simply gave me the space to grow, and in turn, I gave him the same. And that balance, that freedom to be myself, was exactly what I needed. One evening, as we sat on the couch after a long day, Alex turned to me and asked, "Do you ever think about the future? About where we might go from here?" His question caught me off guard, not because I hadn't thought about it, but because I had never imagined having a future with someone after everything I had been through. For a long time, I didn't believe it was possible to build something lasting with another person. But now, with Alex beside me, I felt a sense of possibility that I hadn't felt in years. I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest. "I do," I said, taking his hand in mine. And for the first time, I'm excited about it. It was in that moment that I realized how far I had come. I had gone from a woman who thought she would never love again, to someone who was now allowing herself to dream of a future with someone who truly saw her. Strong, independent, and worthy of love. Over time, we traveled together, explored new places, and built memories that were uniquely ours. Each adventure brought us closer, and I found myself growing in ways I hadn't imagined. We weren't just sharing moments, but building a life. One that was rooted in love, respect, and the shared understanding that our journeys were intertwined. It wasn't always perfect. No relationship is, but it was real, and that's what mattered. I had learned that love wasn't about finding the perfect person. It was about finding someone whose imperfections matched your own. someone who made you feel safe to be vulnerable, and someone who was willing to stand by your side, no matter what. As the months turned into years, I realized that the woman I had once been, the one who was afraid of love, had transformed. Love wasn't a source of fear anymore. It was a part of who I was, a part of the life I had created, not out of need but out of choice. With Alex, I learned that true love is not about finding someone to complete you, but about finding someone who supports you in becoming the best version of yourself. And together, we were creating something beautiful, something lasting. It was a future that, for the first time, felt like it was truly mine to build, with the person I had chosen to walk beside me. And as I stood in the boutique one evening, looking out at the city skyline, I realized that love, just like everything else I had fought for, was something I had earned. It was no longer a fairy tale or a dream. It was my reality. And in that moment, I knew that no matter where life took us, we would face it together. Stronger, better, and unshakable. As time went on, the foundation we built together grew stronger. It wasn't just the love that flourished. It was everything around us. The boutique had expanded into a new location, and the brand had taken on a life of its own, becoming a beacon for women who wanted to feel empowered and beautiful. I had always imagined this, building something that went beyond just clothing. It was a space for women to gather, to share, to grow. But now, with Alex by my side, it felt like the vision was finally coming to life in ways I had only dreamed of. We started discussing new ideas, new ventures, new paths. The thought of expanding even further began to take root, and for the first time, I allowed myself to dream of a bigger picture. We spoke of starting a foundation that would empower women to succeed in business, to give them the resources and support they needed to start their own companies, to follow their dreams. It wasn't just about clothes anymore, it was about creating a lasting impact. But even with all the successes, I knew there was something more profound at play here. I was no longer the woman who had been betrayed, the woman who had walked away from everything she had known. I had found something deeper, a sense of purpose, a calling that went beyond the walls of the boutique or the comforts of my personal life. I wanted to make a difference, to leave behind a legacy that wasn't defined by struggle, but by what came after it. The strength to rise, the resilience to rebuild, and the courage to inspire others to do the same. One afternoon, as we sat in the office, going over some financial projections for the upcoming quarter, Alex looked up at me and said, "What do you see for us in the next 10 years?" The question wasn't unexpected, but it caught me off guard just the same. I had spent so much time looking forward to the next step in my career, thinking about how to expand the boutique, how to continue building. But now, as I thought about it, the vision felt even bigger. "I see a legacy," I said, the words coming out before I could second-guess them. "I see us creating something that helps other women find their voice, their place in the world. I see us making a real difference." Alex smiled, and I could see the same vision reflected in his eyes. He had always supported me, but this was different. He wasn't just my partner in business or in love. He was my partner in something bigger than either of us could have ever imagined. We spent the next few months working on the idea, creating a plan to launch a nonprofit that would provide mentorship, financial aid, and networking opportunities for aspiring female entrepreneurs. We named it Empower Her, a nod to everything we had built and everything we hoped to pass on. The boutique would be the foundation's first corporate sponsor, and through it, we would host workshops, conferences, and community events aimed at bringing women together, teaching them the skills they needed to succeed. The response was overwhelming. Applications flooded in from women across the country, each one with their own story, their own dreams, and their own reasons for wanting to build something for themselves. It was a humbling experience to see so many women, so many incredible stories, come together under one mission. One evening, at our first large-scale event, I stood on stage, speaking to a room full of women, all eager to learn, to grow, to take the next step in their careers. As I looked out at the crowd, I felt a sense of fulfillment that was beyond anything I had ever imagined. This wasn't just about business, it was about lifting each other up. It was about creating a community where success wasn't just for the lucky few, but for everyone willing to put in the work. That night, after the event, Alex and I walked home together, hand in hand, talking about everything we had accomplished and everything we still had ahead of us. We were partners in this, partners in life, love, and everything we had set out to do. And as I reflected on the journey that had brought me here, I realized something profound. It wasn't just about rebuilding my life after betrayal or becoming a successful businesswoman. It was about reclaiming my voice, about using my story to create a ripple effect, to inspire other women to do the same. The legacy I wanted to leave behind wasn't just in the business I had built, but in the lives I had touched, the dreams I had helped nurture. With Alex, with Empower Her, with the boutique and everything we had created, I knew that I had built something lasting, something meaningful. It wasn't perfect, and it never would be, but it was real. And it was mine. As I stood on the balcony that night, looking out at the city lights, I knew one thing for sure. No matter where life took us, no matter what challenges lay ahead, we were ready. Because together we had created something beautiful. And that was only the beginning. As the months turned into years, the foundation of Empower Her grew beyond what we had ever anticipated. It wasn't just a nonprofit anymore. It had become a movement. Women from all walks of life, from every corner of the country, were coming together, sharing their experiences, their struggles, and their successes. What had started as an idea, a vision to empower others, had blossomed into something larger than I ever thought possible. The boutique continued to thrive, becoming a flagship in our mission to support female entrepreneurs. We held events at the store, hosting mentorship sessions, workshops, and networking events. Every corner of our community was buzzing with energy and possibility. And through it all, Alex and I remained steadfast partners, not just in business, but in life. However, as we reached new heights, we began to face new challenges. The nonprofit needed more resources, more people to keep it running smoothly. The boutique was expanding, and with that came the logistical nightmares of managing multiple locations. I was pulled in so many directions that sometimes it felt like I was losing sight of everything we had built. But I wasn't alone anymore. I had Alex, and he had me. It was during one of those long, overwhelming days, when everything seemed like it was happening at once, that I realized something profound. All the years of hard work, the sweat, the late nights, the countless sacrifices, had all led me here, to a place where I didn't need to do it alone anymore, to a place where I had a team, a support system, and a partner who had become just as invested in the success of Empower Her as I was. Alex had never been just a bystander. From the very beginning, he had believed in me, believed in us, and together we had made it work. His ideas, his perspective, his drive to do more had transformed Empower Her into something truly extraordinary. He was my equal, my teammate, my sounding board, and my greatest ally. But even with the strength of our partnership, I felt the weight of all the responsibility. One evening, as I was going over some financial reports, Alex sat down beside me, his hand resting gently on my shoulder. "You've done more than most people could even dream of," he said softly. "But remember, you don't have to carry all of this alone. You've got a team. You've got me." His words were a reminder, a much-needed reminder, that I wasn't in this by myself. He had always been there, supporting me, cheering me on, and believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. And while it was easy for me to get caught up in the weight of the work ahead, Alex always knew how to pull me back into perspective. As we moved forward, I realized that my journey was not just about building a business or a nonprofit. It was about the people I had met along the way, the women whose lives had been transformed by Empower Her. There were countless stories of women who had found the courage to leave toxic relationships, to start their own businesses, to fight for their dreams. They had faced the same struggles I had faced, and yet, with the help of the resources we provided, they had become the women they were always meant to be. One afternoon, as we held a small celebration for a group of women who had graduated from our most recent business mentorship program, one of them came up to me, tears in her eyes. "You don't know what this means," she said. "You gave me the confidence to leave my dead-end job and start my own company. I never thought I could do it, but now I'm here, and I know I'm capable." I could barely hold back my tears. This was what it was all for. This was the impact I had always dreamed of creating. And as I looked around at the faces of the women in the room, I realized just how much we had built together. Not just the businesses, the foundation, or the boutique, but a community of women who were rising together, stronger than they had ever been before. The journey, as it turned out, was never just about success or achievement. It was about connection. It was about lifting each other up and reminding ourselves that we don't have to do it alone. Every person who walked into my boutique, every woman who participated in one of our programs, every friend, mentor, and colleague who had supported me along the way, was a part of this story. And as I stood on the stage that evening, addressing a crowd of women who had made it through the toughest of times to build something beautiful, I couldn't help but smile. The legacy we were building wasn't just mine, it was ours. Together, we were changing the world, one woman at a time. With Alex by my side, with the strength of our community, and with the lessons I had learned along the way, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. Because in the end, this journey had never been about one person's success or failure. It had been about the power of love, resilience, and the unwavering belief that together, we are unstoppable. And as I looked out at the women in the crowd, I knew this was just the beginning. The future was wide open, full of endless possibilities. And I was ready to face it head-on, knowing that no matter where life took me, I would always have the love, the strength, and the community to carry me through. The days began to blend together as the work continued. The foundation thrived, the boutique expanded, and with every new milestone, Alex and I found ourselves building more than just a business. We were shaping the future we had always dreamed of. It wasn't just about profit margins or client meetings anymore. It was about creating a world where every woman could see her worth and rise to her fullest potential. And with every woman who walked through our doors, whether physically or metaphorically, I saw the ripple effects of what we had started. But even with all the success, the truth was that I never really stopped learning. I had spent years building walls around myself after the betrayal, convincing myself that I didn't need anyone else to validate me. I was a survivor, a builder. But over time, I had realized that success wasn't just about doing everything alone. It was about the people you surround yourself with. Alex, my team, and the incredible women we helped every day, they were the real reasons I could keep pushing forward. One day, after an event for a new round of entrepreneurs we were mentoring, I found myself reflecting on the journey. I stood in the back of the boutique, watching women chat and laugh with each other. I saw the connections, the new friendships forming, the women who had gone from feeling lost to finding their voice. I watched them exchange business cards and ideas, many of them embarking on the same path I had, only now they had the tools and the confidence to succeed. It was then that I truly understood the depth of what we had accomplished. The boutique had become more than a business, it was a movement. Empower Her had blossomed into something far greater than a nonprofit. It had sparked a new wave of confidence in women who had been held back by doubt, fear, and societal limitations. And here they were, standing tall, ready to take on the world. Alex stood beside me, his hand gently resting on my back. "This is just the beginning," he said, as though reading my mind. "We've only scratched the surface." I nodded, feeling the truth of his words settle in. There was still so much to do, so many women to reach, so many barriers to break down. But in that moment, I allowed myself to savor the progress, to truly take in how far we had come, not just in business but in the way we had changed lives. This wasn't just my journey anymore. It was ours. And it was far bigger than anything I had originally imagined. The work ahead was daunting, but it wasn't overwhelming anymore. Because I knew that whatever obstacles came our way, we would face them together. Alex, the women we had mentored, the community that had formed around us. Together, we had become a force that nothing could stop. And as we closed that night, standing side by side in the empty boutique, I realized something else. Something that had taken years for me to fully understand. That no matter how successful we became, it would never be enough to define us. It wasn't the number of stores, the articles written about us, or the accolades we received. It was the impact we made on the lives of those around us. It was the knowledge that, through the work we had done, countless women would have the opportunity to live out their dreams, to become who they were always meant to be. As Alex and I stood on the balcony of our apartment later that evening, looking out over the city, I felt a deep sense of contentment. It wasn't just about the journey we had shared so far. It was about the journey that still lay ahead. There were still more people to meet, more lives to change, and more dreams to help come true. And now, more than ever, I knew that we had created something that would outlast us. A legacy that would continue to inspire long after we were gone. It wasn't built on wealth or fame. It was built on love, resilience, and the belief that together, we could change the world. The future was wide open, filled with endless possibilities, and I was ready to step into it, hand in hand with the person who had always believed in me. Together, we had built something real, something lasting, something that would never fade. And as we held hands, ready for whatever came next, I realized that this was what success truly meant. It was the power to create, to love, to inspire, and most importantly, to never stop dreaming. Because with each step we took, we were building the future we had always dreamed of. And the best was yet to come. As the years passed, the success of Empower Her continued to exceed all expectations. It wasn't just a foundation anymore. It had become a movement, a symbol of resilience, strength, and possibility for women everywhere. The boutique, too, continued to thrive, becoming a beacon of inspiration for every woman who walked through its doors. What had started as a small dream had evolved into something far bigger than I ever imagined. But the most meaningful part of it all was the way we had touched lives. It wasn't just about the accolades or the recognition. It was about the women we had mentored, the entrepreneurs we had helped find their footing, and the countless stories of transformation that filled our hearts. Each success, each milestone, felt like a small victory in a much larger battle to change the world. And through it all, Alex and I stood side by side, partners in business, in love, and in life. We had built a future together, one that wasn't defined by the past, but by the shared vision of what we wanted to create. Together, we had proven that love and business could go hand in hand, that you didn't have to compromise who you were to be with someone. And more than anything, we had proven that the best things in life were built from the ground up, with hard work, passion, and a commitment to each other. The impact of our journey was undeniable, and I couldn't have done it without every single person who had supported me along the way. The mentors, the team, the women who trusted and Empower Her, and of course, Alex. They had all played a part in this incredible story, and for that, I was forever grateful. Now, as I reflect on everything we've accomplished, I can't help but feel a sense of pride. But more than pride, there's peace. I've created a life I'm proud of, one that was built not on fear, but on love, determination, and the courage to take chances. But this journey isn't just mine to tell, it's ours. And that's why I want to hear your story too. Every one of you has something powerful to share, a journey that is uniquely yours. Whether you're an entrepreneur, someone who's had to overcome adversity, or someone who is just starting out on their own path, your story matters. Before we close this chapter, I want to connect with you, my amazing viewers. What's your story? What's the one piece of advice or insight that has shaped your journey? Drop it in the comments below. I want to hear from you, and I want us to continue building this community of strong, supportive individuals. If this story has resonated with you, if it's inspired you to take that next step, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with someone who might need a little extra encouragement today, and subscribe for more content like this. Together, we can continue to empower each other and make the world a better place, one step at a time. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. The best is yet to come, and I'm so excited to see where we'll go from here. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep chasing your dreams. As the journey continues, I know there are many more chapters to be written. We've all walked different paths, faced different challenges, but one thing remains the same: the power we hold within ourselves to create change, to rise above, and to build the life we deserve. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. And as I look ahead, I can't help but feel excited for the next steps we will take together. Every single one of you is capable of incredible things. Whether you're in the early stages of your journey or looking back at all the progress you've made, know that you have what it takes to keep moving forward. No matter what obstacles you face, no matter how tough the road gets, remember, you are not alone. We are in this together, and there is power in our collective strength. As we close this chapter and open up the next, I want to challenge you, yes, you. What's the next step you're going to take? Whether it's starting that business, pursuing that dream, or simply taking time for yourself. Make today the day you commit to moving forward. There is no better time than now, and I'll be right here, cheering you on every step of the way. If this story has inspired you, or if you've ever had a moment where you thought about giving up but kept going, let's keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts in the comments, tell us your dreams, and let's support one another as we continue on this path. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected. Let's build this community and show the world that we are strong, capable, and unstoppable. Thank you for being here, for sharing in this journey, and for being part of something truly special. Together, we will continue to rise. Together, we will continue to grow. And together, we will make our mark on the world. Until next time, remember, the journey is just as important as the destination. Keep moving forward, keep dreaming big, and keep empowering yourself and others. The best is truly yet to come.